All right, it is May 5th. This is a regular meeting of the Select Board of Town of Montgomery. It is 6:30 p.m. We'll call the meeting to order. First item is to make any changes, additions, or deletions to the agenda. Anybody have any deletions or additions to the agenda?
I have nothing.
No.
Nope, nothing.
Great, let me just do a quick, okay. Sorry, I have an agenda that had some notes on it about potential stuff that was gonna be added. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't. All right, great. Next up is the review and approval of the minutes of the April 21st regular meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes as written?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of April 21st meeting as written.
Thanks, Mark. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Dan. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of approving the April 21st regular meeting minutes, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Yes.
We have 2 abstentions. So a motion carries 3-0 with 2 abstentions. That brings us to Public Works. First item here, carried forward to all meetings, is the wastewater update. So the only update there is that we continue to get the easement paperwork back from folks and address questions. We are getting a lot of questions from folks around, can this pipe go here versus there? And what about this addition I want to do? Or our dog is buried back there, all sorts of questions. And so we are creating kind of a spreadsheet with each individual property owner with the questions that have to get addressed, and we're kind of tasking it out, legal to Sarah, engineering to Hoyle Tanner. So we are starting to circle back, and we'll be circling back to folks in more detail, first by phone and email, and then we're probably going to try to get a field day with the engineers scheduled sometime like 2 weeks from now, so that they can go and look at everything on the ground if they need on-the-ground follow-up. But that's where we're at there. It's just working through the easement paperwork and answering questions from landowners about potential tweaks to the infrastructure as it's shown on the plan set. Any questions anybody has about the wastewater project?
No.
All right, cool. So moving on to the streetscape project, another item that we're just carrying forward. So only updates here are that the preliminary design submittal was made to V-Trans on April 29th. That might sound weird because we've had preliminary designs for a while now, but this was kind of like the final preliminary design set that goes to V-Trans for formal review and approval. So V-Trans now has that in hand, which is great. They're going to do that review, so we're waiting on that. And then the other part of this, which has been kind of dragging on and on forever, is NEPA clearance, so the National Environmental Protection Act, which does still exist. We've been working through that for quite a while. We're very, 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 very close to completion there. That's a big step because once we clear NEPA, we can move into the next steps around things like right-of-way. And then we're not going to get into it tonight, but probably at our next meeting in May or our first meeting in June, we're going to have kind of a come to God moment about what money we have on hand versus what money we need and the sources that we have to go after that. I've done some preliminary conversations with Bethany around like game planning options. Some of it's a little bit tough because certain funding sources, such as like the bike ped program the state has, which does involve federal money, you can't actually apply for that until you clear right-of-way. And so that's kind of the next step here. So there's kind of like a little bit of a tug and pull around what we can and can't do at this point. So there'll be some strategizing around how we advance work while holding other work back until the funding is secured. So anyway, just putting a marker out there that that's a conversation to come sometime soon that will be kind of a time that we do need to think as a board strategically about what we can afford and what we want to do and timelines for getting other money. Any questions on the streetscape project? Great. Next up is the Montgomery Historical Society's new, quote, water connection approval. Scott's here to present the project, and I will just say that folks do have a draft letter in front of them, which is, should we approve of this? This letter is ready for signature to give to Scott this evening. Do you want to give
Sure,
some
in the interest of being brief, this is a butter tub.
butter was never put in it, that's why it survives, but it's hard to believe, but 1.5 million of these things rolled out of Montgomery for years, from the period about the 1890s through 1910s. And we have one at the Historical Society, because some guy in Montgomery who was a friend of Rita Tatros had one in his basement that never got used, and you can see it was affected by the flood at one time or the other. And that's what we're trying to do. The Historical Society started kind of to save Pratt Hall, the building. But now we've started to collect things that are really cool pieces of Montgomery's history. And in order to do that, it's, you know, especially when it's paper and photos, it's nice to have a building that has heat, and maybe you can control the humidity a little bit and that kind of thing. The building that we have now, that used to be Jay Heaton's house, we're using for storage, but it really is not fit to really store the stuff. So we want to take it down and put up something that resembles this. We have hired cross engineers, and cross engineers has been working on it, and right now they're doing some of the paperwork for permits and whatnot. And one of the permits we need is a septic permit from the state. Because we're a nonprofit, we get to have a small tank, holding tank, that we can pump out once every year, because the septic system that was there is basically no good. And part of that is to have this letter that you've got before you tonight, just saying that we're authorized to hook on. As Charlie said, it's really a reconnection, and Mark has been there and he knows the lay of the land. So that's pretty much it. If you have any questions.
Yeah. So the letter reads, to from what it's regarding, the Montgomery Selectboard and Water Commission considered the referenced request at its regularly scheduled meeting on May 5th, 2025, and approved the requested connection. There is already a curb stop servicing the property from the previous residence, which the MHS has been using as a storage building and plans to replace with a new structure. The municipal system has the capacity to easily meet the anticipated service demand. The new service connection must meet all specifications per the system ordinance. Sincerely, signature. So this is what you guys need. It's related to your septic permit.
Actually, yeah, it's our septic permit according to the engineers.
But it has to do with the water connection.
Right, that's going to be going into it, kind of thing, yeah.
So
I'll make a motion to approve the letter of approval for connection to the municipal water system of the Duso Road building for the Montgomery Historical Society.
Great, thank you, Mark. Is there a second?
Technically, it's 35 Duso Road.
35 Duso Road.
Okay.
Great, so we have a motion from Mark to approve the connection. We have a second from Dan. Thanks, Daniel. Any further discussion? All right, not hearing any. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion carries, and we have approved the new service connection for the Duso Road property.
I can scan that and send you a copy if you want.
Nah, it's okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Any
you.
questions or, no?
Well, I think that sounds great. Looking forward to seeing the new building.
Likewise.
All right, general updates on public works. Mark, anything that you want to report?
They're continuing grading. I think just about everything's been graded twice so far. And now they'll go grade again and start putting gravel down and chloride on the road. It's been a little bit of a challenge with all the rain, but I think they went up on 58 today. There was a couple bad spots up there, and they tried to fix up those spots. So that's what they're working on.
Great. So that brings us through Public Works. Any other items under Public Works to be discussed by the board this evening? We will pivot to visitors next if folks have questions, but anything else?
I just had a question about the truck with the blown motors. We just want to put that out to bid?
Yeah.
Scott can write something up on it, what it is and stuff.
Yeah.
Just put it out to bid.
Yep.
Okay.
Put a nice little for sale sign on it in the yard now.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, that
Okay.
sounds fine. If we
Okay,
can.
I just
And then I'd say also,
Yeah.
feel free to, if there's like newspaper advertising or advertising somewhere,
Yeah.
Scott's got the green light to do any of that. And
Okay.
if he wants to advertise somewhere where it might cost something de minimis, he can do that out of his budget. Like,
Okay.
that's fine.
Yeah.
He doesn't need our approval.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, we'll try to get it out there.
Great.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that brings us through Public Works. So we'll pivot to visitors. Tosca, I think you were here first. Do you have, is it any just town hall stuff?
The town hall stuff, if you want to do it now, you've got to approve a reimbursement for Heartful Kitchen. Wind River Environmental, although we previously had an account with them, has changed their policy. The first 2 orders need to be paid by a credit card. Heartful Kitchen paid the emergency, it was $400. We sent you that email.
Yep.
That card was charged, and the card will be charged for the subsequent repair, which I hope is happening in the next 2 days. They were waiting on a pump. I gave them the okay to order that Friday. Joanne said it would be here today or tomorrow, so hopefully that install will get done Wednesday. And we are contemplating whether we take 1 day to clean Tara. I'm gonna leave that up to Tara before we reopen to general classes.
Okay.
I did manage to get all the contaminated stuff out of the basement, thank you Green Up Day. Bagged it up, got rid of it, so we're right now just needing to mop that back basement and we're good.
Great.
But we've dumped a lot of bleach. The elevator got quirky, but it seems to have worked itself out, and the oven was replaced successfully.
Excellent.
So we now have a relatively new oven that works like a rock star.
Awesome.
Good.
That is all, so.
Cool. So the invoice that we got was for $489.77. That's the amount you're looking to be reimbursed for this
Yes,
evening?
whatever
Yep.
Wind River is charging, and when I get the bill for this repair, I will send that along, and we just need to have that written out to Heartful Kitchen. Erin has our W-9, she should have everything she needs to write a check for that.
Great.
So you just need to.
So the motion would be to issue a reimbursement to Heartful Kitchen to cover the Wind River Septic Service invoice in the amount of $489.77, and this would come out of the town hall account.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, this
that's
is,
up to you guys, I mean, this is a 30-year pump, I still say capital improvement, I mean,
so this invoice is just for the service though, right?
it was an
Yeah.
emergency call.
Emergency call.
Yeah, but this doesn't cover the pump, right? This is
No.
just,
No.
yeah.
No.
I mean, it's wherever it fits to come out of. I do know that, you know, the more we use this building, the more things break. If everything's gonna fall on this town hall committee, you won't have the committee
Yep.
left. People are not, you know, I have fundraised so far a ton of money, and I feel like our rental income's good. So if it makes sense for this to come out of that, that's fine, but.
Yeah, so I mean, we did, so I think the way, and I don't want to speak for the full board, but the way that we've been kind of looking at this is capital improvements, physical infrastructure and stuff. We are looking at taking it out of the building capital improvement fund, so like the carpentry work, the metal work, the grinder pump, when that amount comes in,
Capital.
we could see that out of it.
That's fair.
For regular service stuff, as we've talked about from the get-go with the committee, you know, if the building's gonna get used more, it's gonna cost more heat. You got a budget, we gotta work within the budget,
That's
so.
totally,
And so I think this,
totally agreeable. I think though that, you know, having to call somebody on an emergency because of a 35-year-old piece of equipment shit the
Yep.
bed should not fall on the shoulders of the people that are busting their asses to raise money.
Yeah, I would say that's.
I mean, it's up to you guys. Ultimately, I think the town hall budget can handle that payment and then some.
yeah,
But I don't want it to become a habit. Like if we're running into things that are, like this is due to neglect.
yeah,
And like what are we gonna do when, I mean, obviously, you know, I'm not moving,
Yeah.
but anyway.
For clarity then, operating expenses sort of comes out of the town hall committee budget, and then capital expenses come out of the building improvement, that's sort of like the rough buckets.
For sure, I mean, I agree. And again, I don't think the town hall budget is gonna die because we spend the 480. It is, I mean, it's maintenance, it's like, but the elevator repair, like if that needs to be replaced, then it needs to be a match.
yep,
So the
Yeah.
489.77, that's for pumping?
No.
They came and assessed the situation and he had to pull the pump out. He removed the pump, the existing
Emergency
pump,
service,
he
yeah.
checked
Okay.
it,
Yeah.
he shut down, you know, he kept it from flooding anymore, like he made it,
Yeah.
you know, and he did check the lines because initially our hope was it was just a bad block.
Yeah,
and you
the-
could blow it out.
Yeah.
That
The
was
way-
the
And
case.
what was the conclusion that it is, what is the issue?
Well, so we haven't,
Sorry, a little.
someone has to make the motion, and whoever does can pick which bucket they want to drop
Okay.
from. So that's the discussion that we're having. I will just point out, so the invoice broke down to the service charge was $300 and change. The fuel energy recovery charge, which I don't know what that is $45. And then there was an emergency weekend call before 2 PM, which was an additional $145. That's how it was broken out. So the $489.77 was the total of those three cost centers.
And personally, let's just put it on the town hall budget for this, because then it does separate it as, you know, if the oil ran out, it would be, I don't wanna get
Okay.
into, it's not gonna,
And we can always, you know, should we get to a point where the town hall budget
Yeah.
is crimped and something happens, we can always revisit it.
yeah, I'm good. I
Retroactively.
think let's just,
Yeah.
as long as, you know, it is part of maintenance and that makes sense.
Okay,
So I'll make a motion to reimburse Hartwell Kitchen for the emergency repairs or call for the septic at the town hall. Of the 480, was it
489.77.
489.77.
Awesome.
Okay, and just to be clear, this is coming from the town hall budget.
Town hall
Yeah,
budget,
okay.
yes.
So we have a motion from Mark, a second from Daniel. Are there any other discussion on the motion? All right, hearing no other discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion carries, and you approve the reimbursement request.
I had another question, Tosca.
Yeah.
Did you ask them if they could get an account with the town?
So after, it's two charges, and then they'll bill the town. And so
Okay,
this charge, and then the charge for the repair is gonna go on this card again, so I'll
because
be
they should be able
back.
to directly bill the town.
No, they won't. I
Okay.
begged, and it was Joanne,
Yeah.
Crab Toy, and I was like, Joe, you've always billed the town. She's like, I can't do it, it's our policy. We haven't had service from them. If we had, the last time we used them was almost 2 years ago.
Oh, okay.
And if we had used them again, so it's like you have to have two charges within 1 year and then they'll bill the town.
Oh, okay.
Gotcha.
So it's gonna happen, but the next charge for this repair, which I mean, the kid that I talked to, he's thinking $3,000, somewhere in there. So we have the money to cover it, so it's not a problem. So
But
it's
whatever,
fine,
just
we can
reimburse
do this again as long as everybody knows what's going on, I have no problem with that.
Okay.
Yep,
And the building's operational in the meantime?
It will be after they replace the pump,
Yeah.
which
Okay.
we are hoping happens tomorrow, if things are
Okay.
lucky, Wednesday.
okay.
But Joanne's been in touch with me, so
Okay.
we have good.
My wife is really missing her jujitsu classes there, so if anything
Yes,
you
I
can do there.
really, really. You can
Helps
do
his
it.
home life.
It's nice out, just go out in the park, come on guys, Robbie can drag this.
Oh, God.
Like, there, I'd let that happen, but what if somebody gets a bloody nose?
Yeah.
Thank
All
you
right,
guys
thanks, Tosca.
very much,
Tosca,
appreciate
appreciate
it.
it. Roberta?
So it's been about a month since I've been here. I was on vacation the last meeting, but we talked about, or Mark or somebody gave us a list of projected work.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think there was, and I can't find that paper, and I looked online and I didn't see it, but it said something about road work was gonna be done on, our road and another road, that they were gonna start doing the chipping and cleaning up the ditches and stuff, and they said possibly by June 1st, so it's already the first week in May. So I'm wondering if that's still gonna happen.
I believe so. I mean, we got like 3 more weeks to get the roads graded and chloride, so I'd say still roughly around the beginning of June, I would say, mid-June. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that, so I think there was an item on there around
Yeah.
brush cutting and chipping, which we targeted for completion around June 1st for priority roads, additional work through the summer. So I think the first swipe at the chipping and brush
Yeah.
cutting and brush cutting and chipping, I can speak words. I think the first pass was gonna be going to the areas where they're gonna be doing the ditch cleaning next. Hill West is one
Yeah.
of those. So
Yeah.
I think, just to be clear, the idea was to get to these sections that are listed for the ditch cleaning and then go back and try to get to all roads.
Right.
So, yeah,
So what was the other road, Hill West,
It's Amadon,
Amado?
yeah.
Yeah, Amadon is another
Amadon.
one with the ditch cleaning and maintenance.
Because I know
and then
that
Reagan Road.
the trees and everything are gonna start growing and we're gonna have coverage and you're not gonna be able to see it, all that stuff soon.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was just curious if there was, because we talked about this a couple of times, getting maybe some training on crowning the roads so that our edges are not washing away, or else, what was it, Teresa Alme's, is it husband or boyfriend?
Boyfriend.
Boyfriend. He said tonight that the beginning of Longley Bridge Road was graded, and he said that the edges were up, so now all the water's gonna sit in the middle. So it doesn't seem like there's any consistency, like as far as the crown and the road, you know, the water going off the road, but not washing out all the ditches, or the edges, because our edges, if you just even stand on the bottom of Hill West and just look up, you can see all the wash, and just, you know, all our gravel
Well,
is,
Yeah, I mean, going up the hill, that's where we're planning on fixing it.
Yeah,
And then
I
we're
mean-
removing the berm on the other side too, you know, across from the ditch,
Yeah.
going up right up past Charlie, you know.
yeah, just because, it's just all the dirt is in, just going down the road, and we don't have enough gravel as it is in the road. You
Yeah.
know, he's just scrimming the top when he but there's nothing there to
Right.
thing, and what little we do have is getting washed down the road.
I think that's the plan with the next round of grading, is to add more gravel in these areas and try to get those edges off and crown it more. You know, because some of these areas where he's grading, but he's hitting stones, so he can't grade much deeper. So I think we've got a pile of gravel, and that's what the plan is
Well, I think we're
some of
getting
those
to the
areas.
point where you're gonna hit stones because we're below the gravel on the
But
road.
that's what the plan
We
is.
need to
for
put
this.
more gravel on top, so
Yeah.
that you're not grading.
That is the plan, yeah, for the next time around.
And I will go-
Putting the chloride on it so it helps hold it.
And I will go back and put a note, because again, the draft plan that we put together was draft, just
Right,
to
yeah.
do it. But one thing we have talked about in the past is identifying training opportunities, which was one thing you mentioned. And so I'll make a note there to go back and sit down with the crew about, you know, where can they find these, what do they see, what are ones that might work for them in terms of topics of interest and scheduling. So I'll make a
Yeah.
note to circle back to
I mean,
that.
I don't even know if there is a grading school or.
Yeah, there is.
There was,
Yeah.
I remember I had pressed Scott about it, and he had said that the trouble is that the grader trading that's most broadly available is for like much newer, more digitized graders, and
Yeah.
ours, it'd
not
be
new.
futile to like send him to grader school for a grader that he's not using, kind of,
Okay.
and that was the
Yeah,
conflict.
All right,
yeah, I think that was some of it, yeah. But I think he still could get.
we can still look into opportunities.
Totally.
So that's a great note, Roberta, to add to the list of things to look into.
Because it's not just operating the grader, it's how to
Yeah,
shape the
how to
road.
use the blade.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's how to,
Yeah.
it's a blade.
Yeah.
Yep.
How to shape it.
I
Too.
can't even envision how you would even do that, you know, but I know because I just, yeah, well, you know, because of Willie, but
Yeah,
I know that it can, there's a certain way of doing it, and he's also used the grader where you have the machine stuff in it. So,
Yeah.
it's a very technical job.
mhm.
Right. I know he watched Billy Senior quite a bit when he was working with it, you know, when Billy was driving.
I'm sure you could YouTube it too, I mean, one of the funny things on YouTube.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that is the plan, to get more material on some of these
Yeah.
spots and get them crowned more.
Because I just feel like, and you're getting a lot of that stuff, because you're right at the top of the.
Oh yeah, I see
Pave it. I
ditches, you
mean-
know, so,
It's all like going,
yep.
That's why that area is gonna, we're gonna fix that area, and then take the berm off the other side so the water has a place to
Runs
go.
off.
Yeah,
Yep.
that is the plan. Yeah. Part of the plan.
Cool. Anything else, Roberta?
no, that's it, just the roads.
Okay. Thanks.
I would like the beautification of Montgomery back roads.
Yeah.
Better back roads, there's a grant for that.
Yeah.
That's what I would like to.
They can always be better.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, cool. So let's pivot to Larry. Larry, the floor is yours.
Nothing, thank you.
Okay, easy. Thanks, Larry. All right, so that brings us, let's see, old business. So the first item here is the hazard mitigation plan. So the committee met this evening. Again, that's myself, Mark, Doug, and Greg. We met with Sean from regional planning. tonight was to go through the actions that were in our last hazard mitigation plan to establish what had been completed and what was left outstanding. So that review was done, and then we reviewed items that we wanted to add to this new iteration that hadn't been in the old one. And so the discussion around that looked at some of the new information coming from the road and culvert inventory around culverts that we want to add for replacement that were not included. We're also looking at including a lot of the project scope or scopes that were in the flood study that the Conservation District did that presented on. So like the floodplain restoration work, sediment management plan under Hill West, the brook. So Sean has that. He's going to be compiling those back into the document, and we should be getting towards the end of this. So at our next meeting or the following meeting, I anticipate the board will have a draft of this to review for final comment and then signing off on it if we're good to go. So that process is moving forward. Any questions there? Cool. So the next item under here was just the town hall committee building repairs. We've covered that unless anybody has any other comments there. All right, so moving on to new business. So the first item here was a request for no engine braking signage. So a resident reached out with a question around the use of engine brakes in the village and the center. The concern being that they're awful loud, and other towns have put up, as folks have seen them, no engine brake signs. So they reached out and asked, is that something that we could potentially do? And so I said I would reach out to V-Trans because 118 is a state highway. And so I did speak with V-Trans, and the response that I got from V-Trans was that the state does not install engine brake signs. The town would need to have some sort of ordinance or zoning in place before we could get the 111 permit out of the office to install them. So we would have to either do some sort of ordinance around noise or something that engine brakes would fit into, or it would have to be something in our zoning. That would then be able to unlock the 111 permit, which is what we would need to put in the no engine braking signs. I think the 111 permit, another example of when we used that was to put in like the speed limit, radar speed signs. So anytime we work in the right of way of the state, we need a permit. He did say though that these signs are a tricky topic because engine brakes are a piece of safety equipment, and so the drivers cannot be told not to use them. The signs can really only serve as a suggestion. It's not something that we can actually enforce.
Yeah.
So this was a request from a community member about the noise.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my thought was to start by checking in with the planning commission, because I know the planning commission is working through the next round of zoning iteration, and so my thought was to check in with them around, is there anything in zoning or any place in zoning where this could be potentially rolled in or included, because that seems like something that would be easier than passing a standalone ordinance just to deal with this one issue. Not to diminish the issue, but from a process standpoint, it seems like if it can be addressed through zoning, through some sort of noise thing, that might be the easiest route to take.
Yeah.
So if there's no objection, I was going to run it by Patrick and ask him if it fits into anything the planning commission's been talking about, and then we can see what that looks like, and then potentially kind of take it from there. But like I said, the feedback from V-Trans that we did get is that even if the signs are there, it's not something we can necessarily enforce, it's just a suggestion.
Sure.
So that was the story with the no engine braking signage, so we'll follow up there. The next item under new business was a request that we got, and this didn't come from a resident of Montgomery, but I put it on here because he asked us to. I think all board members were copied on this email.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you guys have seen this, hopefully you've read it. I printed off a copy of the resolution just in case anyone wants to see it. Again, this is basically just a resolution condemning attacks on due process and affirming the constitutional rights of all people in, this would be Montgomery, not Rutland. And it goes through a series of statements and then resolutions. How do folks feel about this? I know in the past, we don't get a lot of this kind of stuff. We have talked about in the past, I believe, the declaration of inclusion has come up. Titus Pressler was working on that, and we had, I think at that point, we had directed him to do a little bit more work, kind of garnering support within the community to then come back to the board with. And then the last time I did talk to Titus, he was busy with other stuff, and so that's why it didn't land on town meeting day this past year. But anyway, what are folks' thoughts on this?
My thoughts are this is something that shouldn't be brought up at town meeting. I mean,
It should be brought to town meeting?
I would say a resolution like this.
Okay,
I mean, then the whole town can vote on it.
okay.
That's my thought.
I didn't think that we should be the ones to just be the only ones saying yes or no.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very much so.
No, I think it's.
But it's fine with me. Again, this wasn't anything I was expecting action on or anticipating action or necessarily wanting action. It was more, we had the request come in. And so what we can do is, for now, just make a note and potentially postpone action on this until town meeting, at which point the community can discuss it.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's where generally we do cover a lot of this stuff, like,
Yeah.
you know, the barricade requests for nuclear-free zones and things.
That's what I was
Did
thinking,
not
but
get this.
That's where
I
my.
was so disappointed about that.
I was too, I was like, Barry.
That's where those resolutions are.
Yes, Larry?
Yes, you said that request came from a non-resident?
That too.
Yeah, they reached out to every town in the state. They reached out to, and so again, I wanted to make that clear before we did anything on it.
And who was that?
It was a gentleman in Rutland whose name I don't think he's not actually on. I don't think he's actually
He's
on.
not.
Oh,
Yeah,
it was the
it was just a
one.
resident of Rutland,
Yeah.
He's a retired service member.
retired service member. I'm not sure. I can find his name if you want, Larry.
No, that's all right.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you. Okay, well, I will make a note, circle back to that gentleman, just so he knows that we have discussed it, and we'll make a note to push this to the next town meeting.
Okay, thank you.
All right, with that, we'll move on to liquor and tobacco licenses. This evening, we've got a license from the inn. This is for an outside consumption permit, as well as a first and third class license. Is there a motion to approve the inn's outside consumption permit, as well as first and third class licenses?
I'll make a motion to approve the inn's outside consumption permits along with their first and third degree license.
Awesome, thanks, Daniel. Any second?
I'll second it.
Thanks, Leanne. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor of approving the inn's outside consumption permit as well as first and third class licenses, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion carries and you've approved the license something. Next up, fleet permits, A&D Excavating and Wrights Excavating. Mark's got these for review as the road commissioner.
So I'll make a motion to approve the fleet permit for A&D Excavating LLC, Blue Collar Septic Services, and Wright Excavating Incorporated.
Great. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second from Daniel. Any other discussion? Hearing no discussion, we'll vote. All those in favor of approving the fleet permits for A&D Excavating and Wrights Excavating, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? All right, motion carries and you've approved the fleet permits. So that takes us through our agenda for this evening, unless there's any other business to be done or things to be discussed.
I actually have a question.
Yeah,
Is there a schedule for fixing those railings at the Grange? I'm just thinking prom's coming up in just a few weeks.
I think Tosca was shooting to have them done by prom, if I
We
remember.
approved that at our last meeting.
Okay, so I wasn't.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
good,
Yeah,
all right.
you were here,
All
yeah,
right then.
yeah,
Did
Yep.
this,
yeah. it was supposed
And then
to
we
be
had a
done.
question from Roberta.
Does anybody know who's in charge of hiring for the summer thing at the rec center?
The summer camp?
The new
Yeah.
rec committee?
It's either the rec committee
I'd say
or,
it's Renee.
Yeah, but there
Renee.
was no numbers of committee, like who on the rec committee? Anybody?
I would probably
mean-
just reach out to Peg or Karen, but
Yeah.
usually it's, I thought Joanne,
Are you talking about the summer camp?
Yeah.
It's Renee Roddy. She
Renee?
does
Sure,
it.
program.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Runs the
think it's
Renee
through the
who?
school.
Renee Roddy.
Davidson.
Davidson.
Yeah.
Okay,
You can get her number from Stacy, like if you just call the school and ask for her email address,
Oh,
they'll give
okay,
it to you.
cool.
Yeah.
They'll give it to me?
Yeah.
Okay.
all right. Anything else for this evening?
Thanks, Roberta.
Good night.
Good night.
Nice evening.
All right, if not,
Hi,
then a-
folks.
Good night, Larry.
Bye.
Larry.
So if not, then a motion to adjourn would be in order.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Mark. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thanks, Leanne. Is there any further discussion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor of adjournment, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion carries, and we stand in adjournment at 7:04 PM. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Wow,
everyone.
wow, that was quick.
So-
Under 35 just for you, Charlie.
Thank you. Yeah.